guys, welcome to new video. In this video, I'm going to discuss very important SQL question. So watch video till end. You will learn lots of things. So let's move to the question. The question is write a query to discuss to identify users with the non-consecutive activity dates. For every gap detected, calculate the start of the gap and the end of the gap and the total numbers of a missing date. So they have given a table. The table name is a clock instinct. So in a tables we have a two columns. One is a user ID, second is a clock in date. So if you see, we have a user ID 1 4 record, user ID 2 3 records, and user ID 3 4 records. So let's read the question once again. The question is write a query to identify users with the non-consecutive activity date. If you see in a user ID 1, there are non-consecutive activity dates are, if you see 1 and a 2 are a consecutive, 2 and a 5 are a non-consecutive, and a 6 is 5 and the 6 is a consecutive. So in a user ID 1, if you see 2 and a 5 are a non-consecutive date, so we need a user ID 1 and their dates, like from a 2 is the start date and a 5 is the end date from non-consecutive activity date. And if you see in that date there are 2 days gap, like 3 and 4 dates are missing, so 2 days gap is there. And if you see for a user ID 2, there are 3 records, and if you see there are 6 date, 2 entries are there, and a 7, so 6 and a 7, so there is no consecutive activity dates gap is there. And for a user ID 3, if you see the dates are 2 4 6 and 7, so 2 and 3, one date is missing, like third date. For a 3, one day is not consecutive. And if you see in a 4 and 6, so here also for a user ID 3, there is one another day is missing, like the non-consecutive dates are present and the gap is one day, like 4 5 and the 6. So let's start with the question. Like they have mentioned, first we are going to identify the the unique records, like the unique date for the user ID 1, unique date for the user ID 2, unique date for user ID 3. So first is like remove the duplicate record, like the remove duplicate dates from every users. Second thing, for each user, if you see user ID 2, there are duplicate record that we are going to remove first. And a second, we are going to use Windows functions to compare the date, like the today's date with the back date, like consecutive date. We are going to compare the, like the 2 date with the 5 date. We are going to compare. So for that we are going to use the Windows function, and after that we are going to do a subtract operation, like today's date with the back date. We are going to subscribe and we are going to find the total missing date for that user. So let's start with the question. First we will find the unique date using city, like the using city functions, like we are going to give the unique entities, unique entities for each user, I can say for each unique entities for each users. So let's delete this first, unique entities for each user ID. So select like this think we are going to select these things, users ID, and if you see a clock in date, from which tables, the table's name has given here. So control C, control home, control date from C, and first let's see the result what we are getting. Select star from that unique entities from CTE. So if we see the result, if you see in the two records, firstly there was a 3 entry because for a user ID 2 there was a 6 date, 2 entries was a present. Now only single entries are there. Okay, now we are going to use the Windows lag functions to compare the current date, with the previous date. So there are the two Windows functions, lag and a lead. We are going to use the lag functions. Why? But why? Because if you see here, lag function is allow you to access the data from the previous row. So for example, our data is like this is our the data. So now we are going to compare this like the second data with the first data. So for that we are going to use the lag functions. So it will give the allow you to access from the previous row, it will give the previous row data. So let's use the lag function using another city. Like we are going to like find the date, like the date difference, date, I can say difference. Okay, this is the functions we are giving. So instead of that, let's give a full name. Let's give a full name as a date difference, and this, yes, we are going to use lag function. Let's use the lag function. So select user ID from first city, and like clock in date, clock in date as a return date, as a return date. Third, we are going to use lag function. Lag is a Windows function that basically used to access the previous record, previous date, or we can say. But what we are lagging, we are going to lag which column? Clock in column. And which here we are going to use, if you know the Windows function, we use the over and we do a partitions by partition, partitions by we are going to do user ID, because we need to find, calculate the start and the end gap, for which identify with the user, with the each user, not all the user, identify the gap between the each user, consecutive, non-consecutive activity date gap between the each user. That's why we are doing a partitions by user ID, and we are going to do order by clock in date, order by clock in date. As we are taking, let's take as a last in date, last in date, from which, from above AP, from above we can say city, from city. Let's see what we are getting in this city. Select star from city. Okay, okay, now if you see in a result, you will get to know. Okay, what I am, okay, no, I need to print that second city, because in a second city we are getting the lag difference also. So if you see, Okay, for the user ID one, that first is a null. User ID two, like the user ID one, this date is coming to second row, this date is coming to a third row, and this date is coming to a fourth row. Like we are taking, if as we have mentions into this chart, like we are getting the lag functions allow you to access the date from the previous row. So we are getting the date from the previous row. For the second, no, for the second user we are getting the date from the previous row. For the third user id we are getting the date from the previous row. So now our pending task is to subtract last date to the end date, and if we see the difference is greater than 0, then there is a consecutive difference is present. Like if you subtract 1 minus 2, then the difference is like 0. We are getting the difference is like the 1, but they are the consecutive. But if you see the 2 minus 5, that we are getting the difference, so that difference we need to find. So we are going to use minus function as like the over, because the return date and a last in date have a data types date. So we will use the built-in function. Let's use the built-in function, which is first take this two column. We need this two column. No, we need as a return date because it will give a return date. So it will give control, it will give a return date as a return date. And a second thing, we need a last in column. Control C, take last in column also. Okay, last in columns, and here we are going to find the date difference. So let's find the date difference. We are going to use a date difference built-in functions. Date difference functions take the three parameter. If you hover that, like for example, let's hover on this. If you see, uh, let difference take the three argument, require three argument it's showing. So first is require difference, like the day difference you want, month difference or week difference you want, and a second parameter from which date to till date you want the date difference. So I am going to use the last date minus the return date, means that current date, that we are going to find the difference from here. And now if you see, let's find first how many difference we are getting as, let's say a days diff function, days difference. Okay, let's run this and let's see what we are getting. Okay, so if you see last date and the current date, there is a no difference. If you see, here is a one day difference because we are minusing 1 to minus. But and if you see, there are the 2 and 5 dates, like the 2, like the 3, 4, 5. So they are minusing, that's why we are getting the 3. But if you see, actually there is only 2 day difference, 2 to 5, like the 3 and a 4 day difference is there. So instead of taking as a day difference, we are going to minus 1. Okay, we are going to do minus 1, so we will get the actual difference. Like if you see, there 1 and 2, there is no difference. There is a consecutive dates 2 and 5. If you see, there is non-consecutive dates are there, and the difference is 2 sorry 3 and 4. If you see 5 and 6, there is no consecutive difference. If you see 7, 6 and 7, there is a no consecutive difference. And if you see 4 and 6, there is a one consecutive. 5 date is missing. 2 and 4, there is a one consecutive date is 3 date is missing. So in a questions, as they have mentioned, find the users with the non-consecutive activity dates. So if the date difference is greater than one, greater than 0, we can say greater than 0 or greater than equal to 1, then there is a consecutive difference is there. So let's use the where conditions where as a day difference is greater than equal to 1, then there is a non-consecutive dates or non-consecutive dates over a gap, we can say is the present. Okay, why we are not getting this? Okay, we can't use directly as a day difference, we need to use that functions directly. Control C. So if you see -1 is greater than 1, let's run the query once again and let's see what we are getting. Okay, now let's see. If you see in a user id 1, there is a non-consecutive dates are 2 and 5. There are the two difference, like the 3 and 4 days are missing, and the user id 3, there's are 2 and the 4 dates are present. So there is 1 day is missing, and for a 3 is also 4 and 6 are dates are there, so one date is missing. If you want to see these 3, let's run both the query at the same time and you will get to know the difference. Okay, now see, if you see a 3, so if you see a 3 here in the 3, like the 2 and the 4, one day is a missing, there is a non-consecutive dates are present for the user id 3. In the 4 and the 5, like if you see 4 and the 6, 5 days is a missing, and 2 and the 4, like the 2 and the 4 date, one days is missing, is the day is 3, so single day difference is there. So you can solve these questions like this way. If you have another solution, please write down your solutions in a comment. If you have a doubt, you can the doubt mentions into a comment. If you like this video, please share, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.